The phone rang just as Sarah was finishing her night shift at the hospital. Her body was tired, her mind heavy, but she answered anyway. Hello. Is this Mrs. Carter? The voice on the other end was calm, but carried a strange weight. Yes, this is she, Sarah replied, pressing the phone closer to her ear. My name is Tom. I own a small pawn shop downtown. I thought I should call you because a man just came in trying to pawn a Rolex watch. Before I accepted it, I ran the serial number through our system, and it flagged. The watch is registered under your late husband's name. I believe it belongs to you. Sarah froze. Her heart pounded so hard she felt it in her throat. A Rolex, she whispered. Yes, a gold one. He said it was a gift. Do you recognize this item? Her knees almost gave out. She grabbed the edge of the kitchen counter to steady herself. That watch wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was Daniel's watch. The one she had saved for years to buy him on his 35th birthday. The one he wore every day until the accident that took him away 2 years ago. After his death, she kept it hidden carefully in the top drawer of her dresser, wrapped in one of his old shirts. It was the last piece of him she could touch. She hadn't shown it to anyone in months. Yes, I know it, Sarah finally managed to say. Her voice cracked. It's my husband's. Tom hesitated before continuing. I thought so. I didn't take the deal. Something felt off. I wanted to reach out to you first. You should know, he paused. The man who brought it and said his name was Marcus. The room spun. Marcus, Daniel's younger brother. Sarah's stomach twisted with rage and disbelief. How? The watch had been in her drawer. She never left it out. No one knew except her. Only one group of people had been in her home recently, Daniel's family. Evelyn, her mother-in-law, and Marcus had visited a few weeks ago under the pretense of checking on Lily. Sarah had been distracted that day, busy cooking and keeping her daughter entertained. Could they have? Her breath quickened. It all made sense now. Evelyn had always resented her, claiming she stole Daniel away. Marcus never hid his jealousy either, living carelessly, drowning in debts, and sneering at Sarah's modest life as a nurse. The thought that they had gone through her things, stolen the one memory she had left, and tried to turn it into cash for their flashy lifestyle, it shattered her. Her hand trembled as she held the phone. Thank you for calling me, she whispered to Tom. Please don't let anyone else take it. That watch means more to me than anything in this world. I understand, Tom replied gently. It's safe here. But you should know, Mrs. Carter. I think this is just the beginning of something bigger. Sarah ended the call and stood alone in the quiet kitchen. The house felt colder than ever. In that moment, she realized the truth. Her in-laws had crossed a line that could never be forgiven. The Rolex wasn't just a watch. It was her husband's memory, her last tie to him, and they had tried to sell it like it meant nothing. Her chest tightened with grief, then with fire. They thought she would stay silent, broken, powerless. But they were wrong. This time, she would fight back. Sarah's life had never been easy, but after Daniel's death, it felt like every day was a battle she had to fight alone. She worked long shifts as a nurse, often returning home late at night with aching feet and tired eyes. Yet no matter how exhausted she was, she always tried to smile when she saw Lily waiting for her. Lily was 15 now, growing fast, her face carrying more and more of her father's features. Sometimes, when Sarah looked at her daughter, it felt like Daniel was still with them. Lily was her reason to keep moving, even when the weight of grief threatened to crush her. Money was always tight. Nursing paid enough to cover rent, groceries, and Lily's school fees, but there was never much left over. Sarah had given up on luxuries. The Rolex Daniel had worn was the only expensive thing left in her life, and she had never once thought of selling it. To her, it wasn't about money. It was about love, about the years she and Daniel had shared before everything changed. Daniel had been her anchor. They met in their 20s, when Sarah was still in nursing school. He was charming, warm, and patient in ways that melted her defenses. She had never forgotten the way he looked at her the first time they met, as if she was the only person in the room. When she finally saved enough to buy him that Rolex on his 35th birthday, the joy on his face was worth every sacrifice she had made. He wore it every day until the night of the accident. The memory of the police officer at her door still haunted her. His family never forgave her for loving him the way she did. Evelyn, Daniel's mother, made her feelings clear from the start. To Evelyn, Sarah was never good enough. She wasn't from the right background, didn't have the right connections, and didn't raise her daughter in the way Evelyn thought was proper. She constantly reminded Sarah that Daniel came from a better family and deserved more than a nurse's modest paycheck. Marcus, Daniel's younger brother, was even worse. Unlike his brother, he had no sense of responsibility. He moved from job to job, lived beyond his means, and often leaned on his mother to cover his debts. Marcus saw Sarah as a nuisance, someone who stood in the way of his easy access to Evelyn's money. After Daniel died, Marcus's bitterness only grew. He would show up at Sarah's house pretending to check on her, but his eyes always wandered around the living room, scanning for valuables. Both Evelyn and Marcus carried a quiet hatred toward her, though they masked it in polite smiles when others were watching. To the outside world, they pretended to be supportive, grieving family members. But behind closed doors, they whispered that Sarah had taken Daniel away, that she had kept him from his true family, and that it was somehow her fault he was gone. For Sarah, it was a lonely place to stand. She wanted to protect Lily from their bitterness, but children notice more than adults think. Sometimes Lily would ask, "Why does Grandma Evelyn never hug me like she hugs the others?" Sarah's heart would ache, but she always answered softly, "Some people just don't know how to show love the right way." Day by day, Sarah pushed forward. She worked her shifts, paid the bills, helped Lily with homework, and kept Daniel's memory alive in the small thing. His picture stayed on the mantel, his old books still lined the shelf, and his watch, now returned from the pawn shop, was meant to stay hidden until Lily was old enough to understand its meaning. But the constant shadow of Evelyn and Marcus loomed over her. They called her ungrateful, accused her of keeping Lily away, and sometimes spread rumors in the community that she was only holding on to Daniel's things because of greed. Sarah tried to ignore them, but their words cut deep. She never wanted a fight. All she wanted was peace, a safe home for her daughter, and a way to move forward while keeping Daniel's love alive in her heart. But now, after learning they had stolen the watch, Sarah realized her silence had only given them more room to disrespect her. It wasn't just about the Rolex anymore. It was about dignity, about standing up for herself and for Lily. If she stayed quiet now, they would think they could take anything, her peace, her reputation, even her daughter's future. For 2 years, she had endured their judgment and cruelty. Now, with this betrayal, Sarah knew she couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. Something had to change, and she would have to be the one to make it happen. Sarah waited until Sunday afternoon to confront them. She told herself she needed to be calm, to choose her words carefully, but her hands still shook as she drove to Evelyn's house. Lily stayed home. Sarah didn't want her daughter to witness what might happen. The house looked the same as always. Neat garden, curtains pulled back just enough to show off the spotless living room. Evelyn opened the door with a tight smile that never reached her eyes. Marcus was on the couch, scrolling on his phone, his legs stretched out like he owned the place. "Sarah," Evelyn said in her cool, clipped tone. "What a surprise." "I need to talk to you both," Sarah said, her voice firmer than she felt. She stepped inside before Evelyn could stop her. Marcus glanced up lazily. "What's this about? You look like you're about to explode." Sarah turned to him, her anger bubbling. "Where is Daniel's watch?" The room went still. Evelyn's smile dropped. Marcus frowned, pretending not to understand. "What watch?" he asked. "You know exactly what I'm talking about," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "Daniel's Rolex. The one I kept in my drawer. Someone tried to pawn it yesterday, and the shop owner called me." She looked directly at Marcus. "He gave me a name. Yours." Marcus laughed, a sharp, mocking sound. "That's ridiculous. Why would I want your husband's old watch?" "It's not just a watch," Sarah snapped. "It's the last gift I gave him, the last piece of him I have left. And you tried to sell it for cash." Evelyn stepped forward, her voice rising. "Sarah, stop this nonsense. You've been under stress for years, and now you're imagining things. Maybe you misplaced it. Maybe you sold it yourself and don't want to admit it." Sarah's mouth fell open. "How dare you? You think I would sell Daniel's watch?" Evelyn folded her arms, her eyes cold. "People do strange things when they're desperate for money. You're barely getting by, aren't you? Always working long shifts. Who's to say you didn't do it, and now you're trying to blame Marcus?" Sarah's heart pounded so hard she could barely hear. "The pawn shop owner told me your son walked in. Do you think I'm making that up?" Marcus leaned back, smirking. "Maybe he's lying. Maybe you begged him to hold it for you, and now you regret it. Gaslighting. That's what they were doing. Twisting the truth, making her doubt herself, trying to make her feel like she was losing her mind." She clenched her fists, fighting the urge to scream. "I know what I kept in my drawer," Sarah said slowly, "and I know who had the chance to take it. You were in my house, Marcus. You and Evelyn. No one else. And now it's gone." Evelyn's face hardened. "You've always seen us as enemies, Sarah. You poisoned Daniel against his own family, and now you're poisoning Lily too. Daniel would be ashamed of you." The words cut like knives. For a moment, Sarah couldn't breathe. To use Daniel's name against her, after everything, was cruelty she could barely stand. Her voice broke, but she forced the words out. "Daniel would be ashamed of you, of both of you, to steal from his wife, to take something that meant so much to him, and then stand here and lie to my face. How dare you?" Marcus rolled his eyes, pretending he was bored, but Sarah saw the flicker of guilt before he masked it. "I want the watch back," she said. "And if you don't give it to me, I will make sure everyone knows what you did." Evelyn let out a cold laugh. And who will believe you? A grieving widow against her husband's own family? People already talk about you. You'll only embarrass yourself more. The air in the room felt heavy, suffocating. Sarah realized then that she would get no apology, no honesty, no shred of decency from. They would rather paint her as crazy than admit the truth. She turned and walked to the door, her legs trembling but her back straight. This isn't over, she said. The moment she stepped outside, tears burned her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. She drove home in silence, gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. Later that night, Tom from the pawn shop called again to check on her. I still have the watch, he said. It's safe here. But Sarah, you should know Marcus came in himself. He signed his name in my logbook. There's no mistake. Her throat tightened. The last piece of Daniel had been violated by the very people who claimed to love him. As she hung up the phone, she sat in the dark living room, her hands covering her face. She had lost so much already, but this was different. This was betrayal. And she knew then she couldn't let it slide. The days after the confrontation grew heavier than Sarah imagined. At first, she thought maybe Evelyn and Marcus would stay quiet out of shame. But she should have known better. Within a week, whispers began circling in the neighborhood and at church. People she had known for years suddenly looked at her with pity or suspicion. Some avoided her altogether. Others asked strange questions that felt rehearsed, as if the words came straight from Evelyn's lips. I heard you tried to sell Daniel's watch but changed your mind. Is that true? One woman asked at the grocery store. Another shook her head sadly. Poor Evelyn. She says you're struggling so badly, it's making you act out. We all worry about you. Sarah bit her tongue each time, fighting back anger. She knew exactly who was behind it. Evelyn had always cared more about appearances than truth. Now she was painting Sarah as a greedy widow desperate for money. Marcus added his own lies, telling people Sarah was unstable, that she was trying to steal from the family that had supported her. The gossip grew like wildfire. Soon even Lily couldn't escape it. One evening, her daughter came home from school with red eyes. She threw her backpack on the floor and stormed into her room. Sarah followed gently. What happened, sweetheart? Lily sat on her bed, hugging her knees. Some kids said Grandma told their parents you tried to sell Dad's watch and blamed Uncle Marcus. They said you're just after money. Mom, why are they saying these things? Sarah's heart broke. She sat beside her daughter and held her close. Because they don't know the truth, Lily. They only know the lies your grandma and uncle want them to hear. But why would they lie? Lily's voice shook. Why would they say those things about you? About us? Sarah struggled for words. How could she explain to a 15-year-old the cruelty of jealousy and bitterness? She smoothed Lily's hair and whispered, sometimes people twist the truth to protect themselves. But you know me. You know who I am. Lily nodded, though her tears didn't stop. Sarah held her tighter, wishing she could shield her from all of it. At work, the whispers reached her too. A colleague she trusted pulled her aside one night after their shift. Sarah, I don't want to get involved, but maybe you should just let it go. Fighting family only makes you look worse. Even her closest friend, Anna, sighed when Sarah confided in her. I believe you, Sarah, I do. But think of your peace. Do you really want to drag this out? People will only talk more. The words stung. It seemed everyone wanted her to stay quiet, to swallow her pain so the world could remain comfortable. But every time she thought of giving in, she remembered the moment she opened that drawer and found Daniel's watch missing. She remembered the smirk on Marcus's face when he denied it. And she remembered how Evelyn had looked at her with cold eyes and accused her of being the problem. The weight of the rumors pressed down on her. She lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she was strong enough to fight. What if taking action made things worse for Lily? What if people never believed her? What if, in the end, she lost everything? Her reputation, her peace, her daughter's trust. One night, as she sat at the kitchen table staring at the stack of unpaid bills, Lily came in quietly. She placed her hand over Sarah's and whispered, Mom, don't let them win. Sarah looked up, surprised. What do you mean? You always tell me to stand up for myself when people lie about me at school. You say silence makes the lies stronger. So why should we stay silent now? Tears filled Sarah's eyes. Lily's young face was serious, braver than Sarah felt in that moment. You're right, Sarah whispered. I don't want you to get hurt. I already am, Lily said softly. Every time I hear them talk about you, it hurts. But it would hurt more if you gave up. Those words lit something inside Sarah. A small flame at first, but steady. For so long she had been surviving, working, enduring, trying not to stir the waters. But now she saw that silence was no protection. It only gave Evelyn and Marcus more room to tear her apart. She began writing everything down. Every rumor, every phone call, every visit. She kept the pawn shop owner's name and number close, knowing his testimony could make a difference. Some nights, doubt still crept in. She would sit in the dark living room, clutching Daniel's photo, asking him silently if this was the right path. She imagined his voice, the way he always encouraged her when she doubted herself. "You've always been stronger than you think, Sarah." Strength. That was what she needed now, not just for herself but for Lily, who deserved to see her mother stand tall against lies. The more she thought about it, the clearer it became. This was not just about a stolen watch. It was about respect, about protecting Daniel's memory, about teaching Lily that truth matters even when it costs you. By the end of that week, Sarah made her choice. She would no longer let Evelyn and Marcus drag her through the mud while she stayed silent. She would fight back, no matter how hard it became. The fear didn't vanish. But standing at her window late one night, watching Lily sleep peacefully, Sarah promised herself one thing. She would not let her daughter grow up believing that silence was the answer to injustice. This battle had been forced on her. Now she would face it head-on. The courtroom was quiet except for the shuffling of papers and the low murmur of people waiting for the case to begin. Sarah sat at the front, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she kept her chin up. Lily was not allowed inside, but Sarah knew her daughter was waiting outside with Anna, praying for her mother to be strong. When the judge entered, everyone rose. Sarah's lawyer gave her a reassuring nod, but she still felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. Across the room sat Marcus, looking smug in a pressed suit he probably couldn't afford. Beside him was Evelyn, her face set in stone, her eyes cold and sharp like daggers. The case began. Sarah's lawyer stood and explained clearly. Marcus had stolen Daniel's Rolex, attempted to pawn it, and then spread lies about Sarah to protect himself. The Rolex was not just valuable in money but in meaning. It was Daniel's memory, and it had been violated. Marcus's lawyer stood and smirked. "Your Honor, this case is nothing more than a grieving widow lashing out. She lost her husband and has been unstable ever since. She is trying to ruin my client's reputation out of spite." Sarah's stomach tightened, but she kept her eyes forward. Then came the witnesses. Tom, the pawn shop owner, walked to the stand. He spoke with a steady voice. "Yes, Marcus Carter brought the Rolex to me. He gave his name, showed me his ID, and signed my logbook. I knew the watch was flagged, so I refused the deal and contacted Mrs. Carter." Marcus's lawyer tried to twist the words, suggesting Tom was mistaken, but the logbook was placed on the desk in front of the judge. The handwriting was clear. The name was clear. Sarah felt a spark of hope, but she knew the hardest part was still to come. Evelyn took the stand next. She sat with her back straight, her pearls shining around her neck, and began to speak with a voice full of venom. "My son Daniel was a good man. But Sarah pulled him away from his family. She encouraged him to spend less time with us. And when he died, she kept us from grieving with our granddaughter. Now she accuses my other son of theft? It is shameful. Daniel would never have wanted this." Her words stabbed at Sarah like knives. When Evelyn looked directly at her, her eyes burned with hatred. If Daniel were alive, he would see how unstable she has become. Perhaps if she hadn't kept him out that night, he wouldn't have died in the accident. She ruined him, and now she wants to ruin Marcus. Gasps filled the room. Sarah's chest tightened with pain. Blaming her for Daniel's death, that was cruelty beyond measure. Her lawyer rose for cross-examination. "Mrs. Carter, do you have any proof that Sarah tried to sell the watch herself?" Evelyn's lips tightened. "No, but everyone knows she struggles with money." The lawyer leaned closer. "And do you also deny that your son Marcus booked a luxury vacation the same day the Rolex was taken to the pawn shop?" Evelyn's face flickered, just for a second. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. The lawyer held up a stack of papers. "These are bank records. They show Marcus booked 2 first-class tickets to the Bahamas on the same day he attempted to pawn the Rolex. The deposit matches almost exactly what he would have received if the watch had been accepted." The room stirred. Marcus's lawyer objected, but the judge allowed the evidence. Marcus's face grew red. "That doesn't prove anything," he shouted. "I had money saved." "Saved?" the lawyer repeated. "Or borrowed? Because these same records show the payment was co-signed by Evelyn Carter, your mother, meaning she supported this purchase." The room fell silent. Evelyn froze in her seat. The judge leaned forward, his expression sharp. "Mrs. Carter," the lawyer continued, "you testified that Sarah is unstable and greedy, yet you co-signed a luxury trip for your son on the exact day he attempted to sell his dead brother's Rolex. Do you deny this?" Evelyn's voice trembled for the first time. "I was only helping my son. He's had a difficult time since Daniel's death." "So you admit you knew about the trip?" Evelyn's hands shook as she gripped the edge of the stand. "Yes, but I didn't know where the money came from." The lawyer pressed on. "And yet you stood here under oath, blaming Sarah for trying to sell the watch, when in fact it was Marcus. You even allowed the community to believe she was unstable. Isn't it true that you were protecting your son and yourself?" Evelyn's face crumbled. She had no answer. The judge raised his hand to quiet the murmurs in the courtroom. "That is enough. The evidence is clear." Sarah's lawyer rested his case. Marcus sat with his jaw tight, glaring at Sarah, but the mask of arrogance had slipped. Evelyn looked smaller than Sarah had ever seen her, her eyes darting to the floor. Sarah sat still, her heart racing. For the first time in years, the truth was no longer just hers to carry. It was out in the open, undeniable. Daniel's memory had been defended. The judge's voice was firm. This court finds Marcus Carter guilty of theft and fraud. As for Mrs. Evelyn Carter, her testimony is proven unreliable and her credibility is damaged. The Rolex will be returned to Mrs. Sarah Carter immediately. Tears filled Sarah's eyes, but she didn't let them fall. She sat taller, her hands steady at last. For the first time in 2 years, she felt Daniel beside her, not as a wound, but as strength. The courtroom stayed silent after the judge spoke. Sarah could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. The Rolex would be returned. Marcus was guilty. Evelyn's lies had been exposed. For a long time, she had dreamed of this moment, but now that it was here, she felt something deeper than victory. She felt relief. The bailiff handed her the watch in a small evidence bag. Sarah's hands shook as she held it, her fingers tracing the cool glass. For 2 years she had feared losing the last piece of Daniel, but now it was back where it belonged. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in a long while, she did not feel pain when she thought of him. She felt peace. Her lawyer whispered, "You don't have to say anything, Sarah. The case is over." But Sarah knew she had to speak. She stood, facing the judge, the jury, and the people who had come to watch. Her voice trembled at first, but it grew stronger with each word. "This watch was never about money," she said softly. "It was a gift I gave my husband on his birthday. He wore it every day until the night he died. After that, it was the only thing I had left of him. When it was stolen, it felt like I lost him all over again." She paused, looking down at the Rolex, then up again. "But standing here today, I realized something. My husband's memory doesn't live in this watch. It lives in me. It lives in our daughter. It lives in the love we shared and the kindness he showed. No one can ever take that away." Her voice grew steadier, filled with a quiet strength. "I fought this case not because of greed, but because respect matters. Truth matters. My husband's memory deserves honesty, not lies. My daughter deserves to know her father's love is stronger than anyone's hate." The room was silent. Even the judge looked moved. Evelyn sat stiffly in her chair, her face pale. Marcus stared at the floor, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Sarah continued, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "For a long time, I carried anger and grief like heavy stones. But today, I choose to lay them down. Today, I choose peace. Because Daniel would not want me to live in bitterness. He would want me to be strong for Lily, and to remember him with love, not pain." Her lawyer placed a gentle hand on her arm, signaling she had said enough. Sarah sat down, her chest rising and falling, but the heaviness inside her was gone. She had spoken her truth, and nothing Evelyn or Marcus did could take that away. When the court adjourned, Sarah walked out into the hallway where Lily waited. The moment her daughter saw the watch in her mother's hands, she ran forward and hugged her tightly. "You got it back," Lily whispered. Sarah nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Yes, sweetheart. But more importantly, we got our dignity back." Lily looked up at her mother with proud eyes. "Dad would be so proud of you." Sarah smiled through her tears. "I hope so. I felt him with me today. Not in pain, but in peace." Together, they walked out of the courthouse into the sunlight. The Rolex gleamed in Sarah's hand, but she no longer clung to it the way she once did. She knew now that Daniel was not trapped in a piece of gold and glass. He was with her in every breath, in every smile Lily gave her, in every moment of courage she found. For the first time since his death, Sarah felt free.